Abarera Legos Ram Ori Banish C10 Demonio Dinaja 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 Abarera Legos Ram Demonio. Dinaja. Abarera. Legos. Ram. Ori. Banish. C10. 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 Demonio. Dinaja. Abarera. Legos. Ram. Ori. Banish.
Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to Satan and Coffee. Sunday, Black Mass. It's good to see everybody. Good to see everybody. And as always, hail Satan, hail Lilith, hail Lucifer, hail Paimon, hail Baphomet, hail thyself. We reject the Trinity. We reject the baptism of John. We reject the baptism of the Spirit. Welcome, everybody. It's good to see everyone here. Let me turn down the mantra here so you guys can hear me okay. All right. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I do apologize for the late start. We had some electrical issues that have apparently since been resolved. So it seems like we're okay now. So welcome, everyone. I hope everyone is having an infernally blessed Sunday and weekend. I know I am. Okay, so we're going to jump right into it today and begin reading from the Satanic Bible, continuing the chapter of Some Evidence of a New Satanic Age. Being reluctant to get up in the morning is to be guilty of sloth. And if you lie in bed long enough, you may find yourself committing yet another sin, lust. To have the faintest stirring of sexual desire is to be guilty of lust. In order to ensure the propagation of humanity, nature made lust the second most powerful instinct, the first being self-preservation. Realizing this, the Christian church made fornication the original sin. In this way, they made sure no one would escape sin. Your very state of being is as a result of sin, the original sin. That's how we know it's live. Yes, exactly. So this is very true. So in the church, one of the problems that we run into with the church constantly, perpetually, continually is the sins are based on human nature. It is designed in such a way that you must feel guilty for being you, for being human, for existing. Your very existence on this planet is a sin. It comes from sin. You must always feel guilty about who you are. And that is, what is this now? That is what we are built upon. We are built upon the idea of guilt for existing. The strongest instinct in every living thing is self-preservation, which brings us to the last of the 7 deadly sins, anger. It is not our instinct for self-preservation that is aroused when someone harms us, when we become angry enough to protect ourselves from further attack. A Satanist practices the motto, if a man smite thee on the cheek, smash him on the other. Let no wrong go unredressed. Be as a lion in the path. Be dangerous, even in defeat. And this is something that I wholeheartedly agree with. Being someone that has suffered, being a victim and then becoming a survivor and then trying to litigate my emotions and my feelings and my well-being has always been something that has been extremely difficult to manage and to work through. For however successful or unsuccessful I have been, in that endeavor, it is something that is always difficult to do. And the idea of being responsible for your own protection is so important. being responsible for how it is that you move through this life and how others view you. Respect through fear is still respect. And we can be respected for many different reasons. We can be respected for our Constitution. We can be respected for, the way that we treat others. But also being respected as it being understood that we are not something to be trifled with. We are not to be treaded on. We are not to be taken advantage of. Because if you hurt me, I will hurt you 10 times worse. Right? And then it is up to the Satanist, it is up to the individual to determine the correct course of action for each situation. No one can tell you what the appropriate response is to something that has been done to you. Sometimes the appropriate response is just to move on, if not just for reasons of self-preservation. Because there are some actions that go directly against self-preservation. Preserving yourself means keeping yourself free. Certain actions may hinder that level of self-preservation. So to understand this philosophy of smashing someone in the other cheek, sometimes that smashing someone in the other cheek is your own success, is your own survival, is your own ability to still be out and about in the world, living, breathing, enjoying, indulging. So let's not take this idea and this philosophy here and think that this philosophy means that we immediately need to destroy our enemy on every level possible, because sometimes destroying your enemy is making sure that your survival is secured. Sometimes the best revenge is your success. Exactly. Because remember, many of the people that would harm us emotionally or physically are people that don't want to see us succeed. They see something in us that enrages them because they know that we are capable and they are not. And they want to destroy that to which they are the most jealous of. Your very being. That being said, your self-preservation and your success is the best revenge that you can get on someone. And the beautiful thing about that kind of revenge, it is a revenge that you didn't even know was coming. Because when you focus on your success, when you focus on your well-being, you do it for you. You don't do it because of someone else or for someone else. You do it for you. You make your life better for you. And by making your life better for you, you in turn extract the revenge that you so desperately needed. Since man's natural instincts lead him to sin, all men are sinners, and all sinners go to hell. If everyone goes to hell, then you will meet all your friends there. Heaven must not be populated with some rather strange creatures if all they lived for was to go to a place where they can strum harps for eternity. Let thy presence be thine enemy's curse. Yes, very good, very good. I love that. So this is also another thing. I have always said this jokingly, but I mean it quite literally, is that if heaven and hell do exist, I would much prefer hell over heaven, because I do not believe, if we go by the Bible, if we look at Catholicism, heaven is described as closeness to God, being close to God. That is considered heaven. Hell is considered separation from God, the opposite of being close to God. So in that case, in that essence, hell is not a place of fire and brimstone and gnashing of teeth. No. Hell is simply a place where God is not. And at the end of the day, if we truly want to be honest with ourselves and want to answer the church in kind, earth, living here in this place, is separation from God. So we live in one hell, threatened with another hell, because an egotistical, omniscient being that is jealous and childish wants us to show him how much we care about him. Seems a bit toxic and narcissistic to me. Constantly looking for someone's approval that will never give it to you. Makes no sense. So I say, fuck it. If heaven and hell are real, I say, I'm going to rip a line from Little Nicky here. If you guys have ever seen that movie with Adam Sandler, let the sin begin, because we live in it anyway, and every instinctive nature that we have, right? It seems a bit, it does seem like a bit of a narcissistic game that God would be playing with us, because supposedly God created everything and everyone and all of this, and the way that our bodies work and our minds work and the chemistry and electrical signals and everything else was created, designed, and put together by God. So God created us in such a way that we would constantly and perpetually be tempted by these so-called sins as our natural body chemistry works, and constantly and perpetually be put into situations that would supposedly risk our closeness to God. Well, to that I say, fuck that. Quite bluntly, quite frankly, just fuck that and fuck God. This twisted little game that the church and God play with humanity is disgusting, revolting, and just mean, to put it simply. Allow yourself to indulge. Satan is the king of this earth, is the god of this earth. Hail, tree sap, hail. Welcome, welcome. Satan is the god of this earth. So says the Bible. So says the Satanist. And as such, the understanding of what we are animals. You ever wonder what predators see in the people what makes one person constantly predate on others, seeming to go through life untouched? Well, I believe in chemical imbalance. I believe in psychological disorder, and I believe that some people are just disconnected from their humanity. I believe that humanity in and of itself, the idea of humanity as an entity, is that there is a certain emotional response. There's a certain level of empathy that we are pre-programmed to have. And when we deal with an individual, whether it be a serial killer or any other type of criminal that goes through and does the things that they do in the way that they do them, they are lacking that empathy. We are natural hunters, right? We are created to be hunters and gatherers, right? Like we are predators. That is what we are. If you look at the biological standpoint of it, and just the way that our eyes are positioned forward right? We are not designed to worry about something else next to us. We are designed to focus on our prey. We are designed to move in, kill, eat, sleep, repeat. That is what we are designed to do. Society and the nature of society has evolved us beyond the necessary base reptilian instincts of the human psyche, which is a wonderful thing for us because we've been able to create beautiful things: art, music, philosophy, religion. We have been able to use our upper brain beyond our base instincts to create things that go far beyond self-preservation and survival. We no longer are in a situation where we have to live in a mindset of survival. We are in a position now where we are able to process fear, love, hatred, confusion. We are able to process the world around us in a way that years and years and years ago we just simply weren't able to. And that continues to happen. We miss it. We miss where it happens. If you simply look at the military is actually a very good representation of the evolution of the human mind and the human body's ability. Because if you look at, you look at the United States Marines back, when they started in like the 40s or whatever, whenever it was that they actually started. Never been in the military. I'm not sure on the specifics, but if you go back the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, 80s even, and then from like kind of like the late 80s, 90s, early 2000s till now, and you compare a Marine from then till now, the physical ability that those human beings have has increased tenfold from what it was. Their alertness, their ability to process information that they see, their ability to process sound. Just simply look at the evolution of the military and an individual in the military to see the advancement of the human mind and body. Look at agencies like the NSA and the CIA. And you look at what was a minimum requirement back in the 80s and what a minimum requirement is now. Well, it has gone up tenfold. Why has it gone up tenfold? Because we continue to evolve, but we are now in a point where we no longer need to evolve physically. So when people think of evolution, they're like, well, we haven't evolved since the Stone Age or whatever. Well, we have. We've evolved quite a bit, actually. But our physical evolution is no longer as important as our psychological evolution. Our psychological evolution is it's just impressive to see how far the human mind has come. From simply going back not even 100 or 200 or 300 years, but just 50, 60 years to 100 years maybe. In the last century, how much we've evolved as a species. We are no longer physically in a situation where we need to evolve physically. We don't need an extra finger. We don't need an extra nose. We don't need gills. We don't need fins. We are controlling the climate. Air conditioning and heating, central heating, we control the climate. We have grown beyond needing to evolve physically. We have evolved in ways that are seemingly less noticeable than other species on this planet. If you think of a frog or a spider or a lizard, those species, those animals, need to evolve to the world around them. because they do not control their surroundings. They live in synchronicity with their surroundings, and therefore they physically evolve to fit inside of that necessary box. We, however, have broken away from the evolutionary standard of the earth and the universe by being able to control the world around us. We don't need to hunt anymore, so we don't need to be faster. We go to the grocery store and we buy our meat. We don't need to kill a tiger and skin it and gut it and things like that. We don't need to make clothing anymore. We go to a store and we buy it. We no longer have to go running after the goat to get its milk to make the cheese, or the cow. We herd them together into one big building, and we figured out a way to continually, constantly, perpetually be able to get milk and dairy from these animals. And then other ones for slaughter. For that hamburger that you had last night. For that pepperoni that you had on your pizza. Even the cheese. We figured out a way to do it. That is evolution. We evolved, not physically, but psychologically. Many people like to use the pretext that, and the eggs in the crust. Well, exactly. You know, even how do we get eggs? Right? Science, understanding the world around us, allowed us to understand how these things work and how to be able to take advantage of it. So a lot of people like to talk about like how we're not, you know, the fastest or the strongest, you know, animals out there. And we're not. Like, if we wanted to get into a fist fight with a fucking lion, sorry, man, lion's going to win. Right? No question about it. Right? You want to get into a fist fight with a lion? Go for it. Try it. You're not going to win, but it might be entertaining. But what did we do? Human ingenuity. That was our evolution, the mind. Where other animals evolved physically, they became stronger, they became faster, more ferocious. We became smarter. We gained the ability to control the world around us, which makes us the apex predator. We are the apex predator. And unfortunately, sometimes what happens when people still have that instinctive need and desire to exercise that necessity to be the apex predator, traditionally, those people that are stripped from empathy, if you look at Roman times or even ancient Greece, these were the warriors that you would send in to destroy another empire, because they just didn't care what they did. People like that have existed for millennia. Since the beginning of humankind. They are just simply more in touch with their base instincts. And as we can see, that's not necessarily a good thing, because when those people do not have the appropriate direction and outlet for what it is that they do, they take it out on the rest of us. We become the prey. And for any apex predator that hunts for sport, there are animals that do it. We're not the only ones. There are other animals that do hunt for sport. We're not the only ones. Good evening. And so when you have an animal that is stripped of empathy, stuck on the base reptilian instincts that they have, completely disconnected from the society that has been built around us, that we created, what is a bigger thrill than to hunt another apex predator? If you think about the philosophy behind the movie Predator, that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what the predator species is. They are devoid of empathy. They don't care about you. They have honor, but their honor is based on whether or not you're able to kill them. And the only thing that they live for is to hunt something bigger, stronger, faster, and more dangerous than them. So we have to define what an apex predator is. So we're talking about it. You're talking about an apex predator within a habitat. Yeah, a crocodile and an alligator, they are apex predators inside of their habitats. Sharks are apex predators inside of their habitat. Right? Great whites, they are the apex predator in their habitat. Right? Only challenged by the orca. But within that habitat. We are globally, I don't want to say universally because there's still a bunch of shit out there that we don't know whether or not it actually exists, but we are the global apex predator. Why is that? Because we, through human evolution, the evolution of the mind, and the ingenuity of the human being, have figured out ways to make ourselves more powerful than those things that are physically able to defeat us. On this planet, we are the top of the food chain. So, an ecosystem functions in such a way that you have, if you look at it on a global scale, I mean, I just hope it answered the question. I mean, I didn't mean to kind of run around it at all, but you know, that's something that I've actually thought about. But if you think of ecosystems, there are ecosystems. There's a global ecosystem. Then there's, like, for example, the rainforest ecosystem. There's the Antarctic ecosystem. There's these smaller ecosystems that build into a much larger ecosystem, which is the global ecosystem, right? How everything works to keep itself functioning, right? And everything has its place, and everything works in tandem, so everything can survive, right? With the transfer of energy. And so on a global scale, we're the apex predator. We're the top of the food chain. Under the right circumstances, can an apex predator inside of its own ecosystem come out on top? Of course. Of course it can. We're not the strongest. We're not the fastest. Right? If you're in a fucking lake or a swamp and you don't have a gun or a knife or something to defend yourself and you're not paying attention, that crocodile is going to rip you in two and have a wonderful dinner. Right? You are crunchy and good with fucking ketchup. End of story. Right? Nothing's going to come out on top of that. But in the right situation, the right circumstances, if your goal is to take that crocodile's life, and you are prepared to take that crocodile's life in the way that we have learned how to do, you are going to come out on top. Almost always. And that's the evolution of the human being. That's the reason why we haven't evolved physically, in physical traits. We've been the same that we've been for thousands of years. Because our evolution stopped being an evolution, a physical evolution, and started being a psychological evolution thousands of years ago. Right? When have you seen a wolf build a shelter? It doesn't. The pack, they live in a cave, they live under shit. You know, they use the elements around them to find shelter. And that's true with any animal. Elephants, they're sentient just like us. They're aware of themselves, their own individuality inside of the world. They can paint, for fuck's sake, from memory. But they don't build shelter. They haven't evolved to that point. It's the same thing with dolphins. Dolphins are known to have societal concepts and ideas just like we do. Right? They have a hierarchy system inside of their own society. Dolphins have, that's fucking Atlantis right there, man. Dolphins have a societal expectation inside of their individuals, inside of each pod. But yet again, you don't see them building shelter, trying to control the world around them. They use their abilities to wrangle in food and, sleep how they need to sleep with how the world is built around them. We are the only species that has gotten to the point where we have figured out how to stop ourselves from being affected by the weather, and then to change the climate inside of the buildings. So if you live in a climate where it's 110 degrees right now, close your windows and turn on your air conditioning, guess what? Now it's 60 degrees. This is why we have stopped evolving physically. We no longer need to evolve physically. But the evolution of the human mind, the psychology, and the spirituality of the human has continually been evolving. And this is evident when you look at military training. When you look at what a Marine or a Navy SEAL from, the 70s and 80s, how they did things and how they do things today. The contrast doesn't have words. It's insane. Of course, 80s, 90s, they were still badasses for the time frame. But the way I see things, if you had a Navy SEAL from the 90s and a Navy SEAL from today, and for some reason you were able to get them together at their peak, at their same age, 25, 30, the Navy SEAL from today would destroy the Navy SEAL from the 90s. And that is because of the evolution of human beings. Because even inside of that, needing to deal with the weather and the water and those extreme situations, it is very much mind over matter. People care about appearance. Well, yeah, appearance is important. It's pride. You should be proud of yourself. You should put yourself in a position where you are proud of who you are. You are prideful. Be proud of who you are. It's extremely important. Let's continue. Times have changed. Religious leaders no longer preach that all our natural actions are sinful. We no longer think sex is dirty or that taking pride in oneself is shameful, or that wanting something someone else has is vicious. Of course not. Times have changed. If you want proof of this, just look at how liberal the churches have become, why they're practicing all the things that you preach. And this is also another very important thing to look at. If you look at how if the church knew that everything that they were saying since the beginning of the Catholic Church was true, and that the rules set forth were the rules that were set forth, and there were no changing them, and these are the rules that God put forth, why are so many things changing in the church? It is a manipulation tactic to boost congregation numbers. Why do you think some churches, I think even a Catholic church now, accepts gay marriage? Because they know so long as they don't accept it and they continue to say that it is an abomination, congregation numbers are going to go down. But you come out as truly being the accepting party in a situation, you will come out on top. Your congregation numbers will go up. You'll be celebrated once again. It's not because they actually believe that it's something that should be allowed, which is a horrible word to use, but it's not something they truly believe should be allowed in the church, but is what they would consider a necessary evil. It is a necessary evil to make sure that the congregation numbers stay up. The baptism numbers stay up. It is a manipulation. It is a lie. It is a convoluted tactic to be relevant in a time where the church is no longer relevant. Satanists hear these and similar statements all the time, and they agree wholeheartedly. But if the world has changed so much, why continue to grasp at the threads of a dying faith? In many religions, if many religions are denying their own scriptures because they are out of date and are preaching the philosophies of Satanism, why not call it by its rightful name, Satanism? Certainly, it would be far less hypocritical. I never said the church was the only one using the manipulation tactic. I never said that. I was merely commenting directly on the church and what I think the church is doing. Of course, there are many people, organizations, and things like that that use the same manipulation tactics. Of course they do. Of course they do. But we're speaking of the church specifically. In recent years, there has been an attempt to humanize the spiritual concept of Christianity. This has manifested itself in the most obvious non-spiritual means. Masses, which had been said in Latin, are now said in native languages, which only succeeds in making the nonsense easier to understand, and at the same time robs the ceremony of the esoteric nature, which is consistent with the tenets of the dogma. It is much simpler to obtain an emotional reaction using words and phrases that cannot be understood than it is with statements which even the simplest mind will question when hearing them in an understandable language. This is another thing that's extremely important. One of the reasons why I have a hard time with the concept and idea of Christian witches and things like that, these people that try to convolute and put together Christianity and occultism. Of course the occult is present in the church. Of course it is. It was stolen from us thousands of years ago. It was taken from us. Of course the occult is extremely present in the church. Without question, without doubt, without hesitance of any kind, I can validly and wholeheartedly say, yes, of course, there is occult spirituality in the church. They took it from us. Their rituals that they perform in their masses were stolen from us. The structure of their books and their lies were stolen from us. Most of the world was occult, pagan, in some way, shape, or form. And of course, back then, it wasn't called paganism. It wasn't called occultism. It just was. It just existed. It was just part of the natural order of things. Right? A Viking pagan, a Norse pagan, didn't call themselves Norse pagan. They just believed in Odin, Thor. Greek paganism. They didn't call themselves Greek paganism. They didn't call themselves occultists. They just were. There's Zeus. We are now something that had never existed before. We are a new wave of the old ways. Unfortunately, because of the church, the correct way to do things has been lost to time. Books and scripture and people burned and killed and murdered. For what? For control. That's what was done. It was done for control. And of course, now with this new wave of Christian witches, my problem with that statement, with that label, is it gives validity to an organization that has made sure that none of us have any validity in their eyes. To call oneself a Christian witch is to say that you give validity to an organization that their entire belief structure was stolen from the old ways. This is where my problem comes from. I don't have a problem with the individual. I do have a problem with the label. And what it represents. What it can come to represent. We should not be giving validity to the Christian or Catholic Church. We should not be giving validity to Jesus. We should not be giving validity to God. Exactly, Tree Sap, exactly. That's exactly what they did. And not just Catholicism. No, I want a field trip through the basements. Right? It's the one time in one's life where one would say, yes, lock me in the basement for a week. I'm good. Bring me food, bring me water, and leave me here for a week. It's I mean, that's just how it is. I mean, I respect everyone for their choices, but I have my opinions and I have my beliefs. And inside of my opinions and inside of my beliefs, I do not believe that anyone should be calling themselves a Christian witch. It gives validity to something that shouldn't have validity to begin with, because their entire structure is built off of lies and death and other beliefs. The best they can do is 3 days and 3 nights, right? Exactly. In recent years, there's been an attempt to, oh, we did that one already. If priests and ministers were to have used the devices to fill their churches 100 years ago that they use today, they would have been charged with heresy, called devils, ofttimes persecuted, but certainly excommunicated without hesitation. And that's 100% true. And this again, this furthers this idea. If we're talking about a dogma, if we're talking about a religion that everyone says is 100% accurate, that it's 100% true, right? That they know that the things that exist in this church are law, then why change anything? Who said it was okay to change anything? Did God come down and say, hey, you know what? Congregation numbers are down, man. You know, we need to get the collection plate kind of, you know, a little bit more full, you know, because everybody knows, you know, God knows everything and can see everything. For some fucking reason, just can't handle money. God just needs a little bit more money every fucking time, right? Can't do it. Got to get that collection plate around. Got to get that collection plate full. Congregations go down. Collection plate numbers go down. Intake goes down. You see what I'm saying? It's politics, not religion. It's not faith. It's not spirituality. It's politics. It's control. Exactly. I mean, we can't prove that our shit exists either. Let's be completely honest with ourselves. But it's not about being able to prove it. The problem is I'm not going out telling people, prove to me that my shit doesn't exist. Because one, you can't prove a negative. That's one thing. And two, you can't prove that it does exist. If you can't prove that it does, you can't necessarily prove that it doesn't. It just is. It's what you believe in. And the problem is most of these Christians and Catholics, you realize the level of logic that these fools have, because when they go live on TikTok or Facebook or YouTube, they'll put in their banner, prove to me that God doesn't exist. It's like, you dumbass. That is not how that works. You cannot prove a negative. I can show you evidence that supports the probability that God doesn't exist, but I cannot prove to you a negative. If you are saying God is real, the burden of proof falls to you to prove that God does exist. You cannot prove a negative. And then they love that statement, because then they turn around and say, well, I've already proven it to you. Have you now? And this is where we run into a problem with spirituality. What constitutes proof to one does not constitute proof to another. What constitutes proof in science cannot be used to prove the existence of anything spiritual. It has not and will not be able to. And depending on your perspective, it can either enhance the idea, probability, possibility that things exist, or completely tear it down, depending on your perspective. These are questions of faith, and the aspect of faith that we do not question is that we believe. If you get results in what it is that you do, and you believe in what it is that you believe in, then go forth and believe in what it is that you believe in. But do not attempt to try to tell somebody else, prove to me that this doesn't exist. You cannot prove a negative. And you cannot, without the shadow of a doubt, prove that it does exist. The perception of your mind needs to be enough for you to understand and believe in what it is that you believe in. Do not look outside the perception of your own mind for proof that something that you have faith in exists, because you will end up destroying yourself. It's okay to have questions. It's okay to have doubts. But we cannot prove and we cannot disprove, so we must only believe or not, and that is your choice. Good evening, Seti. Exactly. The stolen hidden knowledge public, because... Well, yeah, if they made any of that stuff public, it would just completely tear them down. Right? I mean... The church was shitting itself. I guess they found, not long ago, they found a very well-preserved full copy of the Egyptian Book of the Dead, which is something that we haven't had ever, right? And they found it with a bunch of figurines and stuff like that were used, like, you know, I guess, in tandem with the book. Church kind of shat itself a little bit. Like... If I'm not mistaken, what I had heard is that the church, the Vatican specifically, had offered to store it. I wonder why. Right? So, they're still at their games. Obviously, they were denied, but that's beside the point. Anyway, everyone, the point of today's conversation, sermon, however you want to put it, one, the things that the church wants you to feel guilty about are the very things that make you human. are the very things that make you who you are and what you are. And you should never be guilty for being who you are. It doesn't matter if you are gay, if you are lesbian, if you are trans, if you're straight, if you're white, if you're black, if you're whatever you are. You are a human being, and you should never feel guilty for being who you are. Be you and be proud to be you. 1. 2. That which you believe, though you may not be able to prove it, you can prove to yourself. Your results are your answer to everything that you need spiritually. And if you have the results to show yourself that what you are doing is the correct path for you to be on, then continue down your path. You are all amazing. You are all wonderful people. And you all have gifts to share with the world and those around you. So again, hail Satan, hail Lilith, hail Lucifer, hail Paimon, hail Baphomet. We reject the Trinity, we reject the baptism of John, and we reject the baptism of the Spirit. And as always, hail thy fucking self, and we'll see you in the next one. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Goodbye, everybody.